Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time it is, wherever you happen to be. This is Michael E. Gerber, your friend, your enemy, whomever and whatever you think about me, here to awaken the entrepreneur within every single solitary soul we're speaking to. And today, we're speaking about the system, identifying it, remaking it, and growing it like crazy. And we have a great friend and a follower of the E-Myth principles and mindset, Chris Ronzio. Chris Ronzio, the founder of Trainual. And I say that in a mockingly, not desperate way. But Chris, would you please say that word again for me?
Trainual.
Trainual. Exactly what one would expect it to be. Chris, a delight to see you. A delight to be with you.
And you too, Michael, as always. Thank you. There's a funny story behind the name, and we can get into it in a little bit if you'd like.
Let's get into it right now.
So all these words, all the business buzzwords about systems and processes and training and standard operating procedures and franchise prototypes. When I came up with the concept for Trainual, the software, my wife was sitting on the couch. I was sitting in my home office computer chair, and we brainstormed all these different words. And we thought, what fake word can we make up that sounds good together? So we started combining things, and we had systems and processes and processes, and we were trying to combine all these words, and eventually we settled on training and manuals. It's the thing you want to do and the place you want to put it. And so Trainual was born.
I love it. The thing you want to do and the place you want to put it. The thing you have to do and the place you need to put it. And effectively, when you put those pieces together, I got it. It wasn't because you live in Louisiana or something. Trainual.
Train you all. Yeah, you can say it however you want.
I got it. So, Chris, I wanted to share what you have done and how you've done it, because the story is always compelling to me. You know, we've had millions upon millions of people read my books, my E-Myth books. And yet, we don't have millions upon millions of people we're speaking to here today. We have a guy every other week, a woman every other week. And those guys and those women are guys and women just like you. You didn't just read the book, you did the book. And I want to say that again to everybody who's watching us, listening to us. Chris, you didn't just read the book, you did the book. So you might say, just like training and manual came together to Trainual, you suddenly see, every single one of you, the key to the absolutely astonishing success Chris has had and continues to have, a very young guy. So, Chris, please tell us the story of how you met the E-Myth and what happened next.
I'd love to. So for me, my entrepreneurial journey began as a little kid, washing cars, selling lemonade, doing all the things that little kids do. And by the time I got to high school, I wanted to start a real business. So a friend of mine...
Let me stop you for 1 second. You just said
Okay.
Doing what all kids do. All kids don't do that, Chris.
All right. Fair point.
Yeah, understand, I didn't do that.
It's funny. So when I was a kid, we had lemonade stands, but instead of selling the 25-cent cups, we sold them for $2 a piece in big red Solo cups. And we had 8 different flavors, and we set up in prime location on a golf course. And it was always about, how do we improve this business? So from a young age, I loved business. And even now I've got my own children, and my 4-year-old is making, he started to charge me to make me coffee in the morning. And I love it. I love seeing that. It's awakening the entrepreneur in him.
So go on, go on. I interrupted you. Go back to high school and then.
Okay, so fast forward to high school. A friend and I got involved in the video production department at our town, our cable access station. We were producing a show, and it was one of those magazine shows where you interview people around town, and because of that, we had gotten some notoriety around the town. We worked in the supermarket at the time. And so they aired our show over and over and over again around this small town in Massachusetts that I grew up in, to the point that people would come up to us in the grocery store and say, "Hey, you're the video guys. I know you. I've seen you." And so slowly people started saying, "Well, can you film my anniversary party? Or can you come record our wedding? Or my cousin is graduating high school. Can you set up a camera? Or our team, our soccer team is in the championship. Can you guys film it?" And so we had all these requests. And before long, I found myself making money filming these events, and I loved it. So not too long after that, someone gave me a copy. A family friend saw I was entrepreneurial, gave me the copy of the E-Myth, and said, "You should read this." So I remember reading it and flipping through the pages. I think I read the whole thing in one sitting, and I had never read one of the textbooks that they told me to read in high school, but I sat down and read the whole E-Myth because it was so relevant for me. And as I'm flipping through this book, I saw myself as the technician. And I was standing behind the camera. I was doing the work. I was editing the videos. I was doing every job in the business. And I realized that even though I was in high school, I was staying up until all hours of the night. I would set alarms every 2 hours through the night so that I could switch the VHS tapes in the daisy chained VCRs that I was copying tapes.
Guys, I wanted to hear this. I wanted to hear this. We don't make this stuff up. You understand? We don't prompt Chris to tell a story just to benefit us and the E-Myth. We don't do that. We have never done that. I couldn't even imagine doing that. I would hate myself if I did that. You understand? So the story Chris is telling is Chris's story. And the reason I want you to hear it and take it in is because what he's going to describe for you, and I'm already preempting what he's going to describe for you, is that he didn't just read the book, he did the book. Now understand, even when I say that to you, even though I wrote the book, do you understand, I was inspired. It came to me. It wasn't me who did it. It was me who was gifted with it. And that gift was an absolutely stunning. It was like a voice. Napoleon Hill talked about the people from beyond who came to him. It was simply a way of saying what I'm sharing with you right now. But understand, Chris, for whatever reason, was born this way and insisted upon living this way in a way that very few of us do. So Chris, go on with your story. It's so delightful to me.
Well, thank you. And it's funny that we didn't talk about this beforehand, but for anyone that has kids, if you can imagine your 16-year-old setting alarms every 2 hours through the night to wake up and duplicate videotapes because they were selling them for $10 a piece, you know, that is the burden that I put on myself as an entrepreneur. And that's a lot of companies have that sort of story where they put that burden on themselves as the technician to do the work and do it and do it and do it and do it. And that's what I was doing it. So I was fortunate. It was a gift for me that pattern was interrupted at such an early age. And I think so many people have to go through years or decades of entrepreneurial experience before they hit that wall and realize this isn't sustainable. And I was fortunate to have that at a young age. So with my video company, I realized that the most scalable thing that we did was live sporting events. They didn't need to be edited because they were live. They could be streamed online or just sold as is to the parents and coaches and scouts that wanted to see that video. And we could turn them around really quickly. And instead of selling one copy, like for a commercial or a music video or a wedding, we sold hundreds of copies to all of the participants I went to those events. So I saw video as this scalable thing at live events that we could really grow. And so I had that epiphany, and suddenly I turned into the manager and started hiring other camera operators and other editors and people I found off Craigslist and friends of friends and just people I found online to help do that work. And we grew very quickly around the country to doing events, across coast to coast, and over 300 camera operators shooting events for us. And if I hadn't recognized that I couldn't do that all myself and built the systems and the processes and the playbook for other people to do it, then that business very well would have drowned. I would have drowned in the business for sure.
Well, you would have drowned in it, just like 99% of all self-employed people drown in it.
Yeah.
They truly drown in it because they're so consumed by this singular idea they have, doing the work, doing the work, doing the work. It never even enters their mind or imagination that they could actually redo what they do, refocus what they do, so they could, in quotes, you said it, scale it.
Yeah.
You can't scale, Chris, unless you scale the business model that you're pursuing, and you saw that I can do this and replicate this and find many, 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 many customers for this, other than for the folks whose wedding I was videotaping.
Right.
So you selected a very specific market.
And if I was the only one that could do the job and I cared more about it than anyone else, then I would be harder on myself than anyone else. And I'd be the worst boss in the world. So that's where I found myself, is just under that constant pressure of trying to do the work and be my own boss. And so it wasn't until we distilled it down to a system of pre-production and scheduling the event and staffing the event and booking the travel and coordinating the layout of all the cameras and filming the events and capturing the footage and shipping out the videos. Once we had that system, then all we needed to do was plug in the camera operator and the production manager and the salesperson, and we could shoot events everywhere, all around the country. And that system, that repeatability, was actually what attracted our biggest customers.
I love it. So tell me what happened to the video business.
So the next milestone in the video business was after college. I had graduated, I had a serious girlfriend, and she was fed up with all my travel and all the focus I was putting into the business. So she said, I'm moving someplace where it's warm, and you can come or you cannot come. And so at that time, I was in Boston. I had an office, I had employees, I had big customers. We were doing events around the country. And I thought, I can't leave my business. I've worked so hard for this my whole life. I can't walk away from it. But she really challenged me. And so we ended up moving across the country to Arizona, where I now live, and the business stayed in Boston. And that was the next best thing that happened to the company. After the focus on events and getting me out of the camera work, moving 2,300 miles away from the office really forced me to get out of the day-to-day. And it was one of those.
I want everybody to get that. He moved to Arizona and left his business in Boston. Now we had to figure out how to do that from Arizona, in Boston, everywhere around the country, without losing complete control over it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it was really a challenge. It was, I want this life. I want to live somewhere where it's nice. I want a relationship with my girlfriend. I don't want her to leave. How do I make this work? And so I learned the important lesson, to build my business around the life that I wanted instead of building my life around the business. And it was a really important distinction. And so once I got to Arizona, I realized I can run this business remotely. I started to depend on online tools, technology, project management systems, CRMs. How do we manage the relationships? How do we send proposals? How do we, replicate what we did in Boston, but do it from anywhere? How do we get a new person up to speed in St. Louis or Orlando or Portland in one day? How do I send them a box and they be ready to shoot the same day that they receive that box? And those are the problems that I was focused on now as the owner, was how to just perfect the systems of the business. So that was sort of the next chapter in the company.
I love it. I absolutely love it. So there, where you are, where now you're thinking like an entrepreneur as opposed to a technician, thinking like a leader as opposed to a manager, creating the structure, the functionality for the company that you're now seeing from a distance, thinking about it from above. What was the next step in the process with your video company?
So the next step was, now I'm in Arizona. I've joined these entrepreneurship groups. I've surrounded myself with other business owners, and I started to see the anxiety and the burden that they had with their businesses that they were so stuck in. And they looked at me as just living and being at the pool and the golf course. And I've got, my company is all around the country, virtual, and I had a couple offices at that time. And they said, I want that. How do I get that? So a few friends of mine started asking, can you come in and optimize my business? Can you work on my systems? And I thought, well, I don't have time for that. I've got to somehow get 100% out of my business. So I went to my operations director and I talked to him about a promotion into the president of the company. And over a 6-month process, I got myself entirely out of the day-to-day and turned the reins over to him as the president. And to do that, I had to go through and document every responsibility that was still on my plate, and step by step train him on how to do each and every one of those things. And so once he was able to take...
Before you go, don't slip by that one. Listen to this. Everybody, this is so important. At every step in the process where he moved from being a technician to becoming a manager, from being a manager to become a leader, from being the leader to becoming the chairman of the board, he designed the systems or perfected the systems that were absolutely critical to replace him. So rather than simply putting a guy in a job and living in hope that he would be as good as Chris was, Chris never made that mistake. Chris actually orchestrated the entire functionality of a company from the very beginning. We call it a company of one, to what we call a company of 1,000, layer by layer by layer by layer. So absolutely fundamentally critical and missed by almost every single person who goes out on his own or her own and fails to see the requirement for expanding your reach exponentially. So Chris, that's such an important message to everybody. So you then became the chairman of the board.
Yeah, and one thing I would add is that a lot of people hesitate to take off the certain hats in the business, or to pass off certain roles in their company. And each time I did it, every time I handed off responsibility to someone else, there was a little learning curve of them getting used to it. But then their capacity and their skills in that role far exceeded what I was able to do when I was focused on that and 10 other things. And so I think that the business kept getting more mature and kept improving each time someone new took over a set of responsibilities.
I love it.
So once I was out of the day-to-day entirely, I started looking at the consulting opportunities. I thought, this will be fun. Let me see if what I've learned in my video company applies to any other industry. So I started a small boutique consulting firm called Organize Chaos, which is what I think, everything small business feels like chaos. And I thought, if I can help with that, that's great. So Organize Chaos was initially just me. Then it ended up being a small team where we would go into different businesses and talk to all their employees and optimize their workflows. And as that started to get more and more popular, I ended up deciding to sell the video production company. And I sold it. This is interesting too. The biggest value in the company wasn't necessarily our contracts or a list of competitors or the videographers that we had trained. It was the intellectual property of our system and a software that we had put together to manage the fulfillment of all of our orders. And we ended up selling that to our largest customer, which was US Figure Skating. So it was a wonderful, handoff and end to that chapter.
I absolutely love it, because it is so critical to every single person we speak to, who in fact is in the process of growing a company of one to what we call a company of 1,000, with the obvious outcome of being acquired. So if you were to begin to think of your company as a product, as Chris did, and became more intuitively brilliant at it, you begin to think of your company as a product, you realize you have to design your product in such a way that someone is going to want to acquire it because it's built to scale. Nobody wants to acquire it because of what it does today. They want to acquire it because of what it's going to do tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. And what Chris built into his first company was its ability to scale. That's the sale. Its ability to scale. Get that? It is so, so important. So then what did you do?
So with a renewed focus and passion for the consulting, we started to build that into a business. And so again, it was like the cycle repeated itself, where first I was just figuring it out, learning what I was doing, and I was definitely the technician once again. I was consulting and learning how to be a consultant. And then as we developed a product that we could sell people, which was a 1 or a 3-day workshop and some follow-on retainer services, I finally found myself doing a consulting job, and I was sitting there taking notes and thinking, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm just doing the same thing I did yesterday and the same thing I did the day before that. I think in your business, when you're trying to perfect your systems, you're still challenged by the role in the company. So even though you want to work on the business and not in the business, working in the business, you're working on different things in the business, and you're perfecting different things until you're ready to move on to the next thing or move out of it entirely. So that was the spectrum, or the journey I went on, was learning to do the consulting, figuring out where the value was in what we were doing, packaging it, teaching other people to do it, and then getting myself out of it again. And so in doing that process, we were building workflows for people. We were making them more efficient. So we would come in, we'd interview. I interviewed a few thousand employees over the course of doing this. We figured out where the bottlenecks in the company were. We put in new software, and then inevitably every time the owner would say, can you write the instruction manual and the training so that now my team has the franchise prototype, as you would call it, or the standard operating procedures for how things work. How do we do what we do? So we got really good at writing manuals, and we ended up building Trainual as our own solution for that, an in-house tool for our consulting clients. So over the next, thank you. So over the first few years of having Trainual, we would have customers that would recommend Trainual to someone, and they wanted the software, but they didn't want the consulting that went with it. And we saw that happen again and again and again until we realized Trainual is the scalable business here. The consulting was the market research and figuring out the problem to build Trainual as the product that we can really make a massive impact with.
So you get it again. What business are we really in? What is the product that is scalable? And then how do we scale it and grow it exponentially to do the very same thing you did before? Because ultimately, there's an exit strategy. There's always an exit strategy. Because I don't care how brilliant you are and how brilliantly your company operates, or how desperate you are and how desperately your business operates. There is always, always, always an exit strategy, and either happens to you for the wrong reason, or you actually preempt what happens to you by establishing the role and the relationships and the model and the systems at the heart of it that enable you to attract somebody who says, oh my goodness, What an absolutely delightful, perfect business to be in. And it grows and it grows and it grows. So tell us now, Trainual, how many clients are you serving with your software?
So we publicly launched the software last year, January of 2018. And today we have over 1,000 companies using it around the world in 70 plus countries around the world.
That's absolutely spectacular. Chris, I am so thrilled that you joined us. If you could add anything at all to what we've been talking about that might delight the people who are listening to us, what would that be?
I would challenge everyone to think about what they can train someone else to do in their business. And if you can't train someone to do the thing that you are doing, you'll be stuck doing it forever. And this applies to you whether you're the entrepreneur, whether you're a manager, a leader, or any employee in the business. If you have any hope of being promoted in the organization, then what you're doing today needs to be done by someone else tomorrow. And if you're not the one to teach them how to do that thing, then your value of the company is questionable. So I think training is what sets us apart and helps us all expand in our business.
But at the heart of that is another process. And it's going from where you are in what you do and how you do it now to where you could be if you in fact improved upon how you do what you do, or even shift the focus of your function and the work that you're setting out to perform. So there's something very rich in that, Chris, because that's what you did in each of the stories you've just told us. That you effectively went to work on what you did in order to define whether or not that was what you should be best doing, and discovered what the answer to that question was. What could we be best doing, and how to do it better than I can think of it now? And so you established a new focus, a new priority, a new vision, you might say, and then went to work on it to improve it to the point where you could then replicate yourself with somebody who could do it, but better than you ever did. Does that pretty well sum it up?
Absolutely. You said it. You wrote it 20 years ago when I read the book the first time, and it's great to hear it from you again now.
That's the secret to your success, Rich. I'm sorry. It's Chris. It's the secret to your success. I reflected upon somebody else I was talking to before. It's the secret to your success, Chris.
It's the secret to getting rich.
Getting rich. Yeah, but forget about the rich. It's truly, the product is truly the transformation of your life. And in the process of doing that, you grow smarter and smarter and smarter and better and better and better. And you can imagine more than you ever imagined before. So that's the gift. That's the most wonderful gift you've just passed on to everybody. How old are you?
33.
33. Think about that. I'm 50 years older than Chris. 50 freaking years older than Chris. I'm probably 50 years older than anybody listening to us right now. Chris, thank you so much. I want to share with everybody what we've just learned very, very simply, in a way that every single one of you absolutely must get it. You know that I'm the founder of eMyth and the eMyth point of view. I've authored all of the now 30 eMyth books, the eMyth Revisited, the eMyth Manager, the eMyth Enterprise, the most successful small business in the world, the eMyth Mastery, and on and on and on and on and on. And every single one of them address exactly what Chris has been living. He's only 33 years old. Is that not astonishing to you? The logic the logic of how he approached the process that he's been living since he learned what to do by reading the E-Myth in high school. Shame on the rest of you. And then did it and did it and did it and did it. The process, the absolutely extraordinary process. So we've grown out of E-Myth. We've grown beyond the E-Myth. We've grown now to launch our most ambitious enterprise of all time. It's called Radical You. And Radical You has been written about in 2 different books I've published just recently. I want you to read each of them. The first of those is called Beyond the E-Myth, the evolution of an enterprise from a company of 1 to a company of 1,000. Chris has just provided you with an insight into how to go beyond the E-Myth by truly growing a company of 1 into a company of 1,000 and where he is today throughout the world. Think of that. The CEO and founder of a company that spread throughout the world, teaching everyone the methodology that he has applied so rigorously to produce a system that everybody can use, to actually peel away the hierarchy of a fast emerging, absolutely intelligent company that must abide by the rules. At Radical You, we teach what we call, and what Chris has been living, the eightfold path. The first step in the eightfold path is the dream. The second is the vision. The third is the purpose. The fourth is the mission. The fifth we call the job and the client fulfillment system. The next is the practice and the lead generation and lead conversion systems, plus the client fulfillment system. The practice exemplifies the E-Myth idea of going to work on your company to build a franchise prototype. Whether you're ever going to franchise it or not is irrelevant. Every company, as it grows, must become a franchise. Chris knows that. Chris has done that, and every single one of you can do it too. The next step beyond the practice is to replicate it, because that's what Ray Kroc did at McDonald's. He replicated the very first store and perfectly created the second of it. So in the step called the business, you truly begin to understand what a business is. It's up to 7 turnkey practices, plus a turnkey management system. And finally, at Radical You, we take you to the enterprise. And the enterprise is nothing more or less than up to 7 turnkey businesses. Think up to 49 turnkey practices, plus a leadership system. Now, when you obey the rules, when you follow the process, when you truly incorporate and inculcate the system, as Chris just described to you so perfectly, even better than I do, you suddenly understand why it is a theology, literally a theology of practice, a practicum that every single small company must follow. Because as you do, it begins to reveal to you the best way, the best way, the best way beyond belief. That's now available to every single one of you, ladies and gentlemen, for only $497.40 a year. Think about that. In year one, your dream, your vision, your purpose, your mission. In year two, your client fulfillment system. In year three, your client acquisition system, coupled with your client fulfillment system, which creates your franchise prototype. In year four, your business system, which is nothing other than up to 7 turnkey practices, plus a turnkey management system. And finally, your enterprise. And every single company on the planet, every single commercial operation on the planet must think enterprise, because that's when you reach that final step called preparing for your exit strategy. Well, I know Chris is preparing for his exit strategy. And I know Chris has a future beyond Trainual that is sitting there, living there, waiting to speak to him. Chris, I absolutely love your energy. I absolutely love the fact that you've come here and joined us and shared your life with us. And every single one of you, come join me by reading this book. Go to freebook.michaelegerber.com. freebook.michaelegerber.com. And that's exactly what you'll get. And that free book is called Making It on Your Own in America or wherever you happen to live. A journey toward radical self-employment. Get it, read it, and then join us at radicalu.com. That's radicalu.com. And we'll see you soon. Chris, love you. Talk soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Michael.